on the Commanding General Yohanna. So now today is the Monday history class, which we're gonna get into in a moment. But before we do, you know what I mean, I just want to give everyone in the UK a round of applause, man, for the new school that we got, man. You know what I mean? Big up to, you know what I mean? All right, so you know what I mean? Big up to Officer Karafia, Officer Dungabar, Carol Wan, Magawa, Mawasa, you know what I mean? They're in the body now, you know what I mean? And done a tremendous job, man, you know what I mean? Built the platform here, cleaned the place up, set up the chairs, you know what I mean? It's a tremendous job, you know what I mean? And we're only gonna do things bigger, man. School's gonna get better, you know what I mean? And we're gonna get there, man, you know what I mean? Under the Most High and Christ, man. So, you mean, first off, like to big up the UK camp, the sisters, Nakapaya, Taznawa I, Yanakwaf, Hadassah, you know what I mean? Everybody, man, that came, man, supported, man, you know what I mean? On the Feast of Dedication, we got our new school, man, you know what I mean? That's, you mean, that's a spiritual thing right there, and, you know what I mean? It was a good night for sure. But with that being said, you know what I mean, this is the I.S.U.P.K under Commanding General Yohanna. You know what I mean? Do remember to, your tithes are 10% of anything you earn. So as always, if you was to earn £100, £10 would be 10% that will go to the priests and the prophets of the Lord, man. You can donate it online. If you're in a camp, you know what I mean, you can hand it to the head of the camp and he'll send it. Regardless of that, the law is the law, pay tithes, you know what I mean? You can't be talking about I'm righteous, I'm keeping all the laws, and then you ain't paying no tithes. Then guess what? You ain't righteous, man. You ain't keeping no laws, you know what I mean? But with that being said, in the UK, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we do classes in the UK. So you have the Monday class, which is a history class, where, you know what I mean, Officer Karafia, he goes into history, and, you know, the history of Rastafarianism, the history of Christmas, the history of English hooligans, you know what I mean? Some very relevant UK history. Then you got the Wednesday class done by Officer Dungabar. That's the law class, where it goes into laws about, you know what I mean, love thy neighbor, what that really means, how we're supposed to be, man, you know what I mean? And many laws in the Bible. That's the law class. Then you got the scripture breakdown class done by myself. You know what I mean? Where we pick a topic in the Bible and we break it down. You know what I mean? Whether you want to know about John 3:16, God so loved the world, we'll answer that. You want to know, can the other nations be saved? We'll go into that. You want to know if God loves everybody? We'll go into that. So that's what the scripture breakdown class is for. Then also in America, from Tuesdays through till Fridays. I got you. And also, yeah, at this new school, this is the address, right? 394 Lodge Road, Hockley, B18 5PW, B18 5PW, 394 Lodge Road, man. You know what I mean? And it's not far from the town center, so you can damn near on any bus to get into town and just walk the rest, man. It's not in Handsworth, it's not in Aston, it's not in like Litchfield, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, you know what I mean? This is damn near almost just outside of the town center, so you got no excuse, man. If you're in the Birmingham area, you got to be here, man. If you want to learn how to serve the Lord, you got to be here, man. No excuses. Yeah, Crawford. Yeah, so there's no excuses. Then in America, you know what I mean, at 12 a.m., there is classes also as well. So you got the Brotherhood class done by Captain Mashak Mayum, man. That's a powerful class on how blacks and Hispanics are supposed to be loving each other. And what is love according to the Bible? Keeping those laws, statutes, and commandments. That's love. Then 12 o'clock again on a Wednesday, you got the law class. Then at 12 o'clock the day after, you got the scripture breakdown class done by General Mahayaman. Any question you got in the week, bring it there. You've been reading the Bible and there's something you don't understand, bring it there, man. You're reading the Bible and you've come across a verse which has you believing the nations can be saved, bring it there, man. Then the Friday class, you got the Lashawan Kodash, you know what I mean, the Hebrew language, the holy tongue, the native language of every black man, every Hispanic man, and every native Indian man. So you know what I mean? That's the schedule that the UPK has. Then also in the UK, real soon, ain't got a specific date yet. On Fridays, we're going to be having a radio show called On the Ends Radio, man, done by Officer Karafia and Officer Dungabar. If you want to, you know what I mean, sit down, debate it a bit, you know what I mean, feel free to ring us up, man. You know what I mean? You believe Rastafarianism is the way, ring that radio show. And Officer Karafia and Officer Dungabar, they show you how wrong you are, man. You believe Islam's the way, call that radio show, man. And Officer Karafia and Officer Dungabar, they show you how wrong you are, man. So you know what I mean? So that's in the works too. So with that being said, any questions online? Anything anyone has to say? All right. So the history class today was going into the. You know what I mean? You got lots of people saying the Bible is robbed from other histories, whether it's Egyptology, it's the Sumerian epics. You know what I mean? And in this history class today, we're going to show you that that's a lie. The Bible ain't stolen from no other history. And if they're saying the same thing, why? Because it's the same event. A flood in the Bible and a flood in other records, it's not stolen. It's what happened. So people out there saying, well, the Bible's stolen. King David stole Psalms from Egypt. And there's no proof of that neither. There's no Egyptian hieroglyph that you can go, this is where King David got Psalms from. You won't find it. And today, with them all, I'm gonna keep it nice and basic. You know what I mean? I don't want to bore nobody. I don't want no one going to bed at 8. You know what I mean? For what I'm saying, we're gonna get into the basis of it, man. So if you could give me Psalm 16 about the Lord's word, it's a strong word, Psalm 16. Let me get the video. That's right, yeah. Well, it's okay.
Psalm 16:1, preserve me, O Yahweh, for in thee do I put my trust.
And listen to what he's saying, preserve me, meaning to make me alive, keep me alive, for in thee, you know what I mean, he knows that the Most High will protect him if, you know what I mean, he serves him. That's what it's saying, preserve me. Read on.
Verse 2, O my soul has said unto the Most High, thou art my Lord.
No, this ain't the one. It's about his word is like refined gold. Just, if you can find it, it's like it's refined as gold. It's not the one.
Refined.
Yeah. Psalms 12 and 6. That's the one.
Psalms 12 and 6. For the words of the Most High are pure words.
What are the words of the Most High?
Pure words.
And that's what they are, man. The words that need to doubt and be like, you know what I mean? I know that came from Egypt. His words, you can rely on them. His words don't fail, man. And that's something that a lot of us need to understand. In these last days, you got people claiming they're scholars, people claiming history, and no, they don't. All of what they say come from, all what they say about the Bible come from other histories. That's a lie. That's not nowhere in those histories. You can read the hieroglyphs, and there's nowhere where the Bible is taken from their history. You can read the Sumerian epics, and there's no comes from that. But what they do, they bank on your ignorance. They bank on, well, I know you won't, so I can say it. And there's many people that say, well, there's older histories than the Bible, and that's a lie. You know what I mean? In the beginning means in the beginning, man. In the beginning means when things just happened. And yes, other nations wrote history, but this Bible, as what we call it today, is the most accurate history. It says the beginnings of man and also their names. You know what I mean? Many nations have ancient history, but even themselves, they don't know all of it. They just basically sum things up like our ancestor was so and so, and according to the Bible, that name's wrong. But the words of the Lord, what are they?
The words of the Lord are pure words. And silver tried in the furnace of the earth, purified 7 times.
Mean that the words of the Lord, they're strong, man. They've been put through the fire and they're here still, man. You know what I mean? People from the beginning have always been trying to fight against the word of the Lord. Why? Because they hate it. They hate that the Bible is against homosexuality. They hate that God only loves you, black man. And they try to fight it. And the words of the Lord, they've been through the furnace, man. Like said 7 times. Meaning it's been the fire many times. And it's still there, still strong. Read on. You know,
Verse 7, thou shalt keep them.
And that's key. Thou shalt keep them. What does that mean? The Lord keep his word, man. This Bible, as what we call it today, ain't going nowhere. Regardless of what people want to say, regardless of how many people want to say the Bible's tampered with, thou shalt keep them, meaning this record is always going to be here. And this record ain't stolen from other histories, ain't stolen from other nations, ain't stolen from other people's events. The reason why it's in the Bible because it happened, not because, you know what I mean, with us, the Israelites, we just stole everybody's history and said that we're great. That is not true. That is a straight up lie, man. Read on.
God, thou shalt preserve them from this generation forever.
Forever, even till this day. Do you want to know why a Bible is here? Because the Lord wants it here. You know what I mean? After all what we've been through, us as the Jews, we've been, you know what I mean, sold into slavery, been fighting as gladiators, and our record is here still. That's the Lord, man. One nation that's been through so much, their records of Adam, Seth, Methuselah is still here. It can only mean one thing, man. The Lord wants it here. You know what I mean? We should not have no record, man. We still do. Now, we're going to get into the Bible, the histories. Now, to happen in Africa, they make it seem like it's all black thing, black scholars, black historians. And we're going to show you today, ain't nothing black about Egyptology. Ain't nothing black about Pan-Africanism. Ain't nothing black about Kemet. All what you're learning comes from white Egyptian historians. And at the UPK, we provide all the information. It's not going to be no philosophy. It's not going to be no opinion. You're going to learn today that all of that comes from white historians. So this is one book here. It's called Ancient Egypt. It's written, well, by quite a few people. That's why it just basically sums them up. But it's Lorraine Oakes. So now she's a person that got the book printed out. Now we're going to show you today that what people call Pan-Africanism, what people call Egyptology, ain't even a black thing. You know what I mean? Let me get the pages for you real quick. And we're not going to read all of it, of course. It's not that deep. 1 second. I used to know this page at the back of my hand for some reason. Bear me 1 second. Second, let me find that. Yeah, no, while I get that, if you can type in Jean France. Yeah. He was a French Egyptologist. If anything, read that first while I get the page. If you want, you can screen share it with them as well. And we're going to find out something about this guy. You know what I mean? A lot of so-called black historians, black Kemetic historians, they think they're onto something. They think that, you know, this is history bias provided, you know what I mean, by someone that looks like them. And they're going to find out that it's not. You got it for me? Jean France, Champollion.
Jean France Champollion. Jean France Champollion, 23rd December 1790 to the 4th of March 1832, was a French scholar, philologist, orientalist, known primarily as the decipher of Egyptian hieroglyphs.
There, so now this is the guy, the Egyptian hieroglyphs. So you got people thinking, you know, yeah, man, Aswan, Kwesi, Dr. Ben Clark. And for those that claim they can read the hieroglyphs, this is the originator of the guy that deciphered them, meaning he found out what they meant. He deciphered them. He goes, you know what I mean, in the language, this writing here means this. So this is the guy that is known for deciphering, it's like the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Read on.
Okay. And founding figure in Egyptology.
And he did what?
Founding figure in the field of Egyptology.
Founding figure. What does that mean? He's the beginner of it. A founding figure, meaning he's one of them. So it wasn't him alone, but this so-called Egyptologist thing that we see, he's one of the founders of it. Now, he's not black. I don't know if you have it on screenshot or not, but you know what I mean? You can look him up. He's a white Frenchman, if I'm correct. You know what I mean? And he's one of the founding figures of Egyptology. You know what I mean? It ain't no black man. So when people claim they can read the hieroglyphs and you know what I mean that this is our history and we found it, we dug it up. No, you didn't. You're just following another slice of the so-called white man. Read on.
A child prodigy in philology.
In theology, meaning things they make up. So a lot of what we think Egyptology is even about, it's not about that. It's a theology. You know what I mean? It means it doesn't need to be right. It's a theory. A theory means something you believe and you don't need no facts. So a lot of you that say, you know, my art represented this. How do you know? A lot of you that claim didn't do this or they didn't like this and that. How would you know if you're following his theology, his theory, not his fact, his theory? Read on.
He gave his first public paper in decipherment of Demotic in 1806.
So now in 1806, he gave his first of deciphered it. I know what these hieroglyphs mean, and he let everyone know his first decipherment. Read on.
And already as a young man, held many posts of honor in scientific circles, and spoke Coptic and Arabic fluently.
There, so now, of course, he knew other languages, but regardless of that, that's got nothing to do with how do you know if he even deciphered them right, which, if you research this guy even more, a lot of his work was wrong. A lot of what he said certain hieroglyphs were, after him, certain people, they went over his research and he was wrong on a lot. But read on.
During the early 19th century, French culture experienced a period of Egyptomania.
So now the French people, they was fascinated by Egypt. Egyptomania means they once they found out about it, they just couldn't have enough to like Egyptology, wow, Egypt, the pyramids, and you know what I mean? They got very fascinated with it. Read on.
Brought on by Napoleon's discovery in Egypt during his campaign there in 1798 to 1801.
Read on.
Which also brought the light to Trinidad Rosetta Stone. So
now, for those that don't know, I'm not going to get into it. A Rosetta Stone is one of the existing manuscripts where the Egyptians talk about they've conquered us. Israel is on the subject. You can read that on the Rosetta Stone. So now, when they found that, they was intrigued, like, well, I want to know what this says. And you mean that is on it about how they conquered us on the Rosetta Stone. You know what I'm saying? But read on.
Scholars debate the age of Egyptian civilization.
So now they debate when it began. Now, a lot of scholars say Egypt's civilization began about 3,500 BC. That's the common date. But even then, all of them can't even agree on a set date. Some say 3,500 BC. Then someone else would come along. They say, no, I think about 3,000 BC. Then someone else will come along and even give a much earlier date. So even amongst them, they can't even agree. But read on.
Those scholars debate the age of the Egyptian civilization and function and nature of hieroglyphic scripts, which language in any it recorded, and the degree of which the science and phonetics representing each sound and ideographic recording semantic concept directly.
So now they're trying to figure out, you mean how what does that word mean if you add this word with it? And you want to know the funny thing? They don't know. So when you got polite and what's the other one? Jabari talking about, that means Amun Ra. You don't know. You think you know, but you're learning of people that don't even know themselves. They are doing theologian work, man. Theology, theory, it's not facts. Read on.
Many thought that the script was only used as ritual functions, and that as such it was unlikely to be decipherable since it tied to esoteric and philosophical ideas.
There's now, even it's Wikipedia. Of course, there's books to even confirm it, but even they're saying no one really knows because it's tied to esoteric and what's the other one? Philosophical. A big favor. Look up the definition of that word, philosophy. What is a philosophy? So that means now that's going to let you know a lot about hieroglyphs. So when people talk about the Bible's taken from Egyptian history, how would you know? When the people that founded this whole Egyptian philosophy, they don't know what the hieroglyphs mean. So who are you all of a sudden in 2018 to go, I read the hieroglyphs and the flood is taken from this part of the hieroglyphs, this and that is taken from that part of the hieroglyphs, and in the Bible, the book of Psalms is taken from this part of the hieroglyphs, when even the founders don't even know what the hieroglyphs mean. And a lot of it was totally bent on philosophy. You got that for me?
philosophy in the Oxford Dictionary, a theory or attitude that acts as guiding to behavior.
Vida. Is it in that? So it's read that one more time, Slack.
A theory.
A theory. So now a theory, if you look up that word, if you want, you know what I mean? It's saying it means it's something that you believe and you don't need no evidence. A theory means that you don't need no evidence, but you think it's right. So now them with the hieroglyphs, it's a theory, it's a philosophy. So they don't know how to decipher it. They don't know what the phonetics mean. They don't know how to pronounce them. They don't know the different contexts. So when you go on to what's it called, the House of Consciousness, and you know they're showing you the metaneta, they don't really know. You're following the work of people that didn't even know themselves. Only because now black people have adopted it, it doesn't make it any different. You're learning from people that just don't know. Read on in the Jean France, then I'll get to this book. I found the page.
Many thought that the script would only use ritual functions, and that as such it was unlikely to be deciphered, since it was tied to esoteric philosophical ideas, and did not record historical information.
There, so hang on. So a lot of Egyptian records, according to David, it doesn't record historical information. So how does that cut people that say the Bible is taken from the so-called hieroglyphs? Let me see this thinking online. How does that cut them? All right. The way how it cuts them is this. If a lot of the hieroglyphs wasn't used for historical reasons, then how do you know that the history of the Bible is taken from Egypt? So even they're saying a lot of it is not even historical. The Book of the Dead, as what we call it today, is not historical information. It's about when like someone dies, what you do with them. It's got nothing to do with history. It's got nothing to do with the Greeks, the Romans, the Israelites. That's got nothing to do with it. So you can't be using all the hieroglyphs saying the Bible took this event from Egypt when a lot of their writings ain't even anciently historical, if you understand. All right, with that being said, this is from the book, you know what I mean? So for those of you on the camera, these are the forefathers of Egypt, tied right here, man. Englishmen. You know what I mean? If you can read this part here, and then that should be it. Then I'll get the other page for you as well.
The founders of Egyptology, the 19th century saw development of an ever increasing body of serious travelers to Egypt.
So hang on now. So now in the 1900s, many people wanted to go to Egypt, and why? Forefathers like that guy Jean France and many other people. So now in the early 1900s, many white people went to Egypt. They're like, I want to know about the maths, so-called, about the pyramids, how these great people lived at one point in time. So in the 1900s, people was excited with Egypt. Read on.
By this time, these travelers' main interests lay in making careful records of the antiquities rather than in removing them from their original settings.
And now, how do you know that's a lie? They're saying they just wanted to learn. They didn't take anything. How do you know that's a lie? They're in a museum today. Certain pharaohs' golds, where are they? In a art gallery, a museum. Certain pharaohs' heads and their dead remains, they're in a gallery today. So that's a lie about we just came and, well, if it's in the London, what's it called? The London History of Art. If it's there right now, then you did not preserve it where it was. So that's a lie right there within itself. You can't preserve nothing and say, I'm just leaving it there. And then it's back in the UK. It's back in France. It's back in America. So clearly what the author's saying right there, that's a blatant. See in a museum today, I can go to London right now and I can see some Egyptian remains in there, Egyptian gold. So you know what I mean? Some parts of some ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. I can see it right there. So clearly that's a lie. Read on.
Settings of museums of Europe. John Gardner Wilkinson. The work of Sir Gardner Wilkinson, 1797 to 1875, laid the foundations of Egyptology in Britain.
He did what?
Laid the foundation of Egyptology in Britain.
So this guy laid the foundations of Egyptology, and that's another white man from England. You know what I mean? And you're gonna notice it. People try to masquerade it like, you know what I mean, the Egyptology they're following is all black and it's African. And no, it's not. White people are the founders of this Egyptology philosophy. Egyptians didn't call it Egyptology. It was their philosophy of certain gods. It was a religion. Egyptology, what you see today, is made by white people, man. And all those debates that people see about the Bible is taken from Egypt, that was also made by white people too. Those arguments, they're old. You can look it up. In the early 1900s, between white Christians and white people that followed that whole Kemetic Egypt stuff, they had that debate over 100 years ago on, is the Bible taken from Egypt? Is the flood taken from Egypt? It's old. What's funny, what people say today ain't nothing new, and they use the same information, same sources, and guess what? Even amongst white people, Christians smashed them back then. And the same way people do it now, it's just the exact same thing. It ain't nothing new. But read on.
In 1821, he spent the next 12 years systematically studying the main archaeological sites of Egypt and Nubia, including Karnak, the tomb of the Valley of the Kings of Gebal and Barkal, sacred mountains.
Okay, so now many people that say, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, like with the history, the decipherment, I'm like an expert. You're only calling yourself an expert off of this man's research. If he did not do what he did, you wouldn't know anything about those towns, Karnak, and like all those regions. You wouldn't know about it if he didn't do any research on them. It's not because you're deep and you got deep knowledge. It's because you're following the work of this man right here, man. Read on.
The sacred mountain near 4 cataracts. He made precise copies of the tomb of Benai Hassan, identified the labyrinth described by the classical authors of the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III at Hawa, and was the first to draw up detailed plan of Tel Amarna.
Okay, so now for those of you that don't know what Tel Amarna is, it's the ancient town that the Egyptians had. So from him going there, he got a rough excavation of how it would have looked. So these people, they went to Egypt and they researched it deeply. They made sure that, you know, they knew the ancient towns, the pharaoh's tombs, and a lot of that research is where so-called black Pan-Africanist Egyptologists, that's where all of them get their information from this man. So when they talk about this pharaoh lived here, he did this town, this ritual, it all comes from these men. And these men, they got their history from a Egyptian scholar called Manetho. And we're going to find out about Manetho right here. this is another book called Egypt on Ovid. You know what I mean? Written by Vivian Davis. You know what I mean? And it goes to it goes just to unmasking all the lies about ancient Egypt, about the pyramids, which we'll get into in this same book as well, man. So if you want, read that page, Egypt's Uncovered.
Egypt Uncovered. In the twilight of Egypt's greatness, around 300 BC, an Egyptian priest named Manetho began to compile a history of Egypt in his new monarch.
Okay, so now with this guy, he's an Egyptian historian that lived in 300 BC. So now at this time, this is when the Greeks have invaded that land, and he's a Egyptian by birth. So of course, you had white people that lived there, and you had original Egyptians that lived there too. And this guy, he became a historian, meaning he's going to research ancient history before his time. Read on.
Ptolemy, a Macedonian Greek successor to Alexander the Great, it was to be a complete history beginning with creation.
Okay, so now his job was to give the whole history of Egypt from the beginning. You know what I mean? So from day one, Egypt became a landmass, and the people had their gods, their rights, the cultures, the customs. So now his job was to, you know, research it all the way back to the beginning.
And in it, Manetho organized the pharaohs into 30 dynasties of royal families down to its own time. His history, however, has been preserved only in the works of the later authors, who, for the most part, wish only to refute his claim of Egypt's vast heritage. Okay, so now real historians, they question his vast heritage. You know what I mean? He's got some long list of, you know what I mean, this pharaoh, that pharaoh, dynasty 1, dynasty 2, dynasty 25, dynasty 30 dynasties. Egypt did not have that much, and even they refute his work. You know what I mean? While he was doing his historical research, he was trying to make Egypt seem like the best place on the earth. And real historians that have some of his work, they debate it on how old Egypt really is, how many dynasties really was there. Read on. For who? Okay. Who for the most part wish only to refute his claim of Egypt's vast heritage. Unfortunately, these copies are often contradictory and rife with errors. So what does that let you know about his work? His work is rife with errors. And you want to know what's funny? Many people that love Africa, Egypt, they love his work. You know what I mean? What is the first thing every Pan-Africanist says? Before you go into the Bible, before you go into anything, what is the first thing someone that loves Egypt always says? Not quite. Before that, you know what I mean? What do they let you know about Egypt? Which is wrong, by the way. That's right. Egypt is the first place. It all began in Egypt. Everything began there. And the guy who's, you know what I mean, the historian who's trying to back that up, his own work has strifes and errors. So you're saying Egypt was the first place, life began in Egypt, life began in Africa. You know what I mean? His work has errors, and people debate his work on how many dynasties were even there. So people, you know what I mean? So you're looking up to his work, and real historians argue with his work. They know something is wrong with his work, and his work has strife and errors, man. Read on. Only tattered fragments remain of the detailed records Manetho must have examined. And we can only imagine the wealth of information they once contained. Yet, a faint hint can be gleaned from the walls of Egypt's most sacred places. 1,000 years before Manetho was born, King Seti I built a temple at Abydos dedicated to Osiris.
You read that, yeah. There should be some highlighted parts on the next page. Yeah.
The earliest name of the king, the earliest name in the list is King Means, who, according to Menepos, founded Egypt's first dynasty, reigned 60 years, advanced his army beyond the frontiers of his realm, and won great renown before being carried out.
So now that's key. Now keep that in mind. The first king is Means. You can look it up in your own time. Means, that's not his only name. He went by another name of Nana or something like that. You know what I mean? He was known by another name. And with him, you're going to research that according to Egyptology, he is the first king, but he did not even come from the Egyptian land. He came from the Middle East. And what was another name for him? The Scorpion King. And you know what's funny? When you watch the film with The Rock, where does he come from? Then he went to Egypt. So even they know that the first king of Egypt ain't even an Egyptian by birth. Even they know that. You can research it. Research the Scorpion King, and they'll let you know he came from the Middle East. He came from Acadia, which in the Bible is called Akkad. And that's a fact. If you want, you can look up, type in Means, King Means, and it should have his Semitic influence. So even this man, King Means, another name for him was the Scorpion King. And it was a Hollywood film about 10 years ago, starring The Rock. And it plays out the exact same way. It comes from the Middle East, goes to Egypt, then becomes a pharaoh, then becomes a king. So even they know that, you know what I mean? The first Egyptian king is not even an Egyptian by birth. Like, he's not an Egyptian by blood. It's someone that went there. Can't find it. Means or Nama. Nama, his name is. Or the Scorpion King. Okay. No, so I've got a book in it at home, and it lets you know that he was Semitic, and that, you know what I mean? He basically came to Egypt, and he's their first king. But that's for another history class. I got the records, but read on in that book, Egypt Uncovered.
Advanced his army beyond the frontiers of his one great renown before being carried off by a hippopotamus. Yet Menepos, as Seti before him, knew that the beginning of the Egyptian history was not the work of just one man. So now, that's a contradiction then. So first you're saying this one king, he excelled Egypt. And then he's contradicting himself, saying that the work of Egypt ain't one man. Because according to Egyptology, this pharaoh, he unified the south and the north. You know, for those of you that don't know, Egypt was never ever one. The people that lived on the south of the river Happy, you know what I mean? They hated the people that lived on the north. So, you know, they always had wars. And according to their understanding, this king Means he's the one to unify them. He's the one to make Egypt one. But then now they're saying the work of Egypt was not done by the work of one man. So even in his own research, that's contradicts himself. So which one is it? Is it King Means, Nama, or was Egypt unified not by the work of one man? Which one is it? So even in Egyptology, there's contradictions. People love to say the Bible contradicts itself, but in Egyptian, it contradicts itself. So the Egyptian historian of one thing, he's saying one pharaoh, then 1,000 years before him, the pharaoh before saying Egypt wasn't unified by one man, if everyone understands. I read on. Before Means, Menepos relates Egypt was ruled by the demigods, also called the spirits of the dead.
Now, how weird is that, man? So you're saying before this guy ruled, is ruled by what? Demigods. Why would you even believe something like that? So what? It was ruled by half dog head, half man. Basically, that's what they believe. And you're going to put your belief in that. You're going to deny the Bible and put your belief in before a man ruled, it ruled by some demigods. And then you question the Bible. You question in the beginning, God made man. And you're willing to accept, yeah, you mean Africa was ruled by demigods. Which one sounds more strange? Which one is more easy to accept? You mean if God said, "Let there be light," and historically, and even in like the white man's science, they can back it up. You can't back up demigods ruling the earth. You can't show no evidence of that at all. But we done.
Can't. Their names long forgotten them were the falcon-headed souls of Buto and the jackal-headed souls of High Canopolis.
Okay, and you want to know what's funny? People laugh at the Bible. You believe that there's someone in the sky, and you believe before man was on the earth, there was some falcon-headed, you know what I mean, mists going around the place. So technically, we're in the same boat then. Agree? Or what's wrong? So it seems like a lot of people that stick to Pan-Africanism, Egyptian religion, they would laugh at us when they believe in a similar thing. They believe in things that you can't see. So you know what I mean? And in the Bible, we have a Father in heaven. You believe in jackal heads with human form and all kinds. So what's wrong with what we believe? And you want to know facts? A lot of them don't even know of it. They just know about, you know what I mean, Pharaoh, Seti the First, Akhenaten, but they don't know about what Egyptians really believe. They believe before a king unified Egypt, there was, you know what I mean, people like, what's it called, lantern heads. The people like jackal heads and like a Alkan as well. So that's what they believe. Real Egyptians that live in the Sudan, that's not what you believe now. We done?
The spirits of the deified dead kings of two towns in two very different parts of Egypt.
So now that's what they really believe. And it's heavy because this book is not trying to show that the Egyptian historians, they didn't know what they was on about. It's just going into the facts of Egypt, end of. And even he's saying a lot of Egyptian history contradicts each other. Manetho saying this king means unified Egypt. But then 1,000 years before him, one king saying it wasn't one person, many people did it. And even before them, there was these spiritual beings that was around, which is stupid and crazy. You know what I mean? Nothing like that happened. On the earth, the Lord made man, and man rules the earth. Ain't no mysticism, ain't nothing strange about it, ain't nothing odd about it. Give me a scripture about he made the earth for man in Psalms 105 or 115. Might be Psalm 115. He made the earth for the sons of man. All right, Psalms 115 and 16. All right, yeah, read it for me.
Psalms 115 and 16. The heaven, even the heaven, are the most highest.
So the heaven, even the heaven, meaning the sky, indeed the sky, that's for the Lord, man. The Most High, he dwells way up there. That's for the Lord. Find out about the earth. We're going to find out about the purpose of the earth. Read.
But the earth have you given to the children of men.
So the earth is for us. We are the sons of men. We are, you know what I mean, the people that are meant to inhabit earth. Not no jackal-headed deities, not no falcon-headed deities. You know what I mean? We rule this earth, man. And that's the way how the Lord set it up. So to believe some crap like that just don't make no sense. You're going to put a belief in something like that. When in the Bible, there was light, and as well, there's facts behind it. The sun for a light by day. You can read it and accept how the earth is made. There's herbs, there's fowls in the sky, fishes in the sea. You know what I mean? There's not at all. People question the people say about the Bible, and if you check your own beliefs, maybe you might want to think twice. Maybe you might want to pick up the Bible and read. If you knew what real Egyptians believe, man. If you knew what real Egyptians thought about the beginnings of the earth. It's like if you put back there, Egypt uncovered. I got another part in there. But give me Isaiah 30:1. Isaiah 30:1.
Isaiah 30:1. Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Most High.
What does woe mean? Destruction. Destruction unto the rebellious people, man. And that's us. We are rebellious. You know what I mean? Now, of course, this is talking about today rebellious going into. We are rebellious going into Egypt, man. Caring about pharaohs. And it's not even your history. You caring about Egypt is like me caring about Hawaiian history, Japanese history, Chinese history, talking about the last Amorite, talking about he was great, man. Talking about the Yin dynasty, it's a great history, but it's not my history. And when we do that about Egypt, we're doing the exact same thing, man. When we talk about, yeah, man, Egypt and this pharaoh and the wars with the Mesh West tribe, you know what I mean? And this pharaoh beat this people. It's great history for them. And for an Egyptian, it should lift up their head, but it should not lift up yours. You want to know why? Because it's not your history. As I said before, me caring about Egyptian history is like me caring about some Japanese history about this samurai was great with the sword, man. He was so fast. Like, it's good, but it's got nothing to do with me. And that's something that a lot of us don't understand. When we care about Egypt, it's a great history for them, but it's not your history. You got nothing to do with it. Their upcomings got nothing to do with you. It's for their people. Read on.
That take counsel, but not of me. And that cover with the covering, but not of my spirit.
But not of my spirit. When you go into Egypt, you ain't got the spirit of the Lord, man. You got the spirit of ancient Egyptians, man. Wearing the red crown, the white crown, which the American flag comes from as well. In the Egyptian dynasties, the red one representing war. So if a pharaoh, not pharaoh, if his guy was a commander, he would wear the red crown. The ones that done the sacrifices wore the white crown, and the other crown, that was for the pharaoh, if I'm correct. Don't hold me to that part there. And the American flag, the red, white, and the blue, that comes from ancient Egypt too. You know what I mean? So we have adopted a spirit, but it's not of the Lord, man. The Lord ain't in Egypt. The Lord don't care about Egypt. You know what I mean? The only time the Lord ever cared about it when you was in it in Exodus. That's the only time the Lord ever cared about it. And once you was gone, what happened? Egypt was nothing, man. The Babylonians had a war in Egypt. Assyrians beat even the Assyrians beat them too. The Greeks conquered Egypt. The Romans conquered Egypt. The Arabs conquered Egypt. Ottoman Turks conquered Egypt. And what's it now? It's nothing. You know what I mean? Even the people that live there now, a pyramid ain't nothing to them. Hieroglyphs don't mean nothing to them. But yet, in the UK, we're over here talking about Egypt's the motherland and reading the hieroglyphs, spending money to learn Egypt, man. Going on the plane to see dust. You know what I mean? Going on the plane to see nothing, man. Read on.
That they may add sin to sin.
That they may add sin to sin. So we're in the UK in sin. We're already breaking the laws of God, following Christmas, following them. When you take up Egyptology, you're adding sin to sin, man. You know what I mean? The lifestyle we're living already is sin, and you're adding on more sin when you go into Egyptology, man. Read on.
That walk down into Egypt. And have not asked at my mouth.
And we ain't asked out of the Lord's mouth. We ain't ever gone to a man of God, a priest of the Lord, and go, you know what? What do you want? What does the Lord want? We don't ever do that. We just got our opinions. You know what I mean? It all began in Africa. Egypt's my history. You know what I mean? This Pharaoh was great. This Pharaoh looks mighty on his throne. And it's not our history. It's, you know what I mean? It sounds good, but it's not yours. Just like many nations, Ethiopians have a strong history too. And I don't hate them for it. Every nation, you know what I mean? It helps their nation. It keeps their nation confident. It keeps their nation strong. But it's not your history. That's the problem. And when we go into Egypt, we're doing the same thing. We're taking a history of a people that are not your people. You know what I mean? You're supporting another race of people that are not your people, man. Read on.
And have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. So
now that's what we do. We strengthen ourselves in like their kings. Like, for example, at my dad's house, he's got some big shrine of some pharaoh. I don't know who he is. And that's what we do. We strengthen ourselves in Pharaoh. We look at it and go, yeah, that looks strong, man. A dark-skinned man on a throne. And you strengthen yourself in him. When you're stronger than Pharaoh, man, your people are better than any Pharaoh in Egypt. Your people are going to rule the earth, not just Egypt, not just the north part of Egypt, not just the south of Egypt. The Bible says the world was made for our sakes, not just Egypt. But we strengthen ourselves in a Pharaoh, in the house, some Pharaoh on his throne. Look at that, man. Dark-skinned man looking strong, you know, like, and guess what? That same dark-skinned man hated you. If he was alive and you went to Egypt, he would oppress you. If you was in Egypt back in them days, he would have you as a slave. God. Why? Because you're the Hebrews. You're the people of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God. He don't like you. And he has a... 1 second. Isaiah 30 is good, but let me get the part I wanted. It's Isaiah 31 about the Pharaoh's just man. He's not God. Yeah, Isaiah 3, but you can start from verse 1. So just
Isaiah 31 and 1. Woe unto them that go down into Egypt for help.
And that's us. We go into Egypt for help. You know what I mean? Us as black people in the UK, predominantly of West Indian descent. You know, you want to know who you are. You want to know where you originate from. You want to know your heritage. And what's the big mistake all of us do? We go down to Egypt for help, man. You know what I mean? You're looking for identity. I'm going to Egypt. His dark skin like me just makes sense. But it's not true, man. Back then, people had forefathers. It wasn't about how your forefathers. You mean we were dark just like them, had features just like them, but we're not them. They come from Ham. We come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, man. We're from a Shemitic line, and that's something that we don't understand. We just bunch all dark-skinned people up as one and say, well, I'm them, I'm the Egyptians, I'm the Sudanese, I'm the South Africans, I'm the Ethiopians, and Ethiopians, the dark, but do Ethiopians look like us? So there you go. So even in bunching all races up as one, there's an error because all of them don't look the same. All of them don't get on. You know what I mean? So that's the error within itself. But read on. Oh, sorry. So Egypt for help, meaning when we want to find out our identity, Egypt, when you want to find out who you are, what's the mistake you're making? You're going into Egypt. Read on.
And stay on horses and trust in chariots.
And that's the problem. You look at them hieroglyphs and see the pharaoh on his horse, a chariot, and what comes into your mind? That's a black man with strength right there. I'm in the UK as a slave, working a dead-end job that I can't stand. I phone in sick every day, you know what I mean? And then the image of a dark-skinned man on a horse and a chariot leading an army, and you stay on horses and chariots, like, that's amazing. I'm staying on that, meaning your mind is occupied on what you see on that picture. Read on.
Because they are many.
Because they are many. You go, look at that, a black army. Look at all the knights with their swords and their armor, and you get amazed because it's many. Read on.
And in horsemen, because they are very strong.
Because they are what?
Very strong.
And that's the reason why so many black people like this whole Egyptian religion, because it looks strong. You see the hieroglyphs and this pharaoh on his horse and he's chasing away his enemies, and it looks strong. And that's the only reason why we're into it. You want to know why? Because in Africa, it's a continent. Egypt ain't the only country in Africa. Next to Egypt is Libya. South of Egypt is the Sudan. East of Egypt is Ethiopia. So what about them countries? But you don't worry about that. You focus on Egypt. Why? Because out of all of them, Egypt looks strong. And that's why you occupy your mind on, because out of all of them, they are the strongest. Out of all of them, their history looks the best. That's why you want to gravitate towards that, because it looks strong. Read on.
But they are of Israel.
And that's the problem. Why are you looking at Egypt? Because it looks strong. You don't look to the Holy One of Israel. You don't look to your God. You're looking at their gods, Seti and Seth and what's the other one? Anubis. You look to them and you don't look to the Holy One of Israel, God for Israel. That's what the Holy One is. The God you serve is separate. He's only exclusively for you, man. And you don't look to him. You look at Pharaoh because he's strong. You know what I mean? You look at the image where the chariot is big and all of his enemies are this small, and you go, that's power right there. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. But read on.
Neither seek the Lord.
Neither seek the Lord. And that's the problem. We're in is because we don't seek the Lord. It's not because of our history in Egypt. It's not because of the wars of Kemet. It's because we don't seek, because we're not on the side of the Lord. When we sinned, we became his enemy. When we sinned, we became his, and that's the problem. We're not seeking the Lord. Read on.
Verse 2, yet he also is wise and will bring evil and will not call back his words.
So because we seek Egypt, because we want to be Mr. Egyptologist, the Lord's going to bring evil and not bring back his word. What does that mean? When it says something is going to happen, he's not going to hold it back. And in the UK, we know about that. Living in hell, police stop and search every second, police harassment. The Lord sent his word and did not bring it back, man. When you live in the ghetto and having corned beef sandwiches, that's the Lord bringing his word and not bringing it back. When you live in the ghetto and there's drug dealing happening outside your house, every heathen owns all your shops. They're selling you weave, ackee, saltfish. You know what I mean? Anything that you eat, that's the Lord sending his word and not bringing it back. When we're lost as a people, following Islam, following Christianity, following Egyptology, in the Bible it says we shall serve other gods. And that's the Lord sending his word and not bringing it back, man. Will we done?
But will arise against the house of the evildoers.
And that's the Lord, man. He rose against us. Why? Because we are that house of evildoers. We're the people that keep doing the evil. And the Lord rose up against us, man. The Lord rose up for the evil that we was doing against him. Read on.
And against the help of them that work iniquity.
And against the help of them that work iniquity, meaning those that help us, the Lord's against them too. So who's that help? Aswan Crazy, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, what's the other ones? Jabaris. The Lord's going to rise up against them that help us, meaning when you're lost and there's someone helping you in being lost, the Lord's going to rise up against them as well, man. Your pastor, your imam, they help in making us lost. The Lord's going to rise up against them too, man. Read on.
Now the Egyptians are men and not the Most High.
And that's something we need to understand. Egyptians are just men. Those kings, you see, they're just men. They're nothing special. Akhenaten, Tutankhamun. These people, they're just men. They're not God. How we worship them, we make them to seem bigger than what they are. Those pharaohs were just men and they died. You know what I mean? They was mummified. Why? Because they're dead. You know what I mean? And the Egyptians were just men. They was not God. And how we worship them, how we give them so much reverence, we make them to be gods. And Egyptians are just men. That's all they are, man. Any pharaoh, you know what I mean? All of them, they're just men. That's all they are, man. Every pharaoh was just a man. And they died, man. You know what I mean? Some in war, some of diseases. There's even, matter of fact, there's a fact. A lot of them died young. In Egypt, the life expectancy was only 35. You know what I mean? If you live to 35, you was old. So even that alone shows that they're not God. You know what I mean? The life expectancy was only 35. There was an article by The Sun. That's a newspaper in the UK. And they went into the history how a lot of them had incest and the life expectancy. So for a pharaoh, if you ruled at 12, you didn't have a long rulership. You ruled 10 years, 15 years max. Some died. Someone who ruled for 3 years. The life expectancy in Egypt wasn't even that great. So the Egyptians are men. They are not God. Read on.
And the horses are flesh.
And the horses are flesh, man. So when you get all these images of the pharaoh on his horse, the horse is flesh and he's not God. He's nobody. In the Bible, it says all the other nations are nothing, zero, nil. You know what I mean? So these people ain't God. The horses are flesh, man. Read.
God, and not spirit. When the Lord shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that will hope shall fall.
And that's what the Lord is doing now. You know what I mean? He that's helping shall fall, meaning he that's helping push these lies amongst us about Egypt, these lies about Christianity, these lies about Seventh-day Adventists. These people are going to fall, man. Read on.
Shall fall, and they shall fall together.
And they shall fall together. Those that are us that are helping spread those lies, and those that are helping us spreading those philosophies, they're gonna fall, man. But yeah, in the same book, page 49, you know what I mean? People love to say at one point Egypt was one, and you know what I mean, the oneness. And even Egyptian historians are gonna show you that Egypt was never one, man. From the earliest dynasties, get it for me on page 49.
Okay. Page 49 of Egyptian Uncovered. To lead an expedition beyond the boundaries of the ordered world required bravery and skill.
Okay, so now in the dynasties, they will go and search out other lands, go and find other Africans. so-called. Read on.
Such men were highly regarded and well compensated.
So now these men that would go and expedite, they was highly compensated, meaning the Pharaoh, he would pay them. But we're going to find out what he paid them for. Was they just searching and just, seeing how other Africans lived? Or was those expeditions for something else? Read on.
Among the most famous of them was a man called I.S.U.P.K. He was based at Elephantine at the first contract of the Nile, the perfect place from which to launch at His Majesty's bidding expeditions to the south to bring back for him the exotic treasures of Africa. Okay, so now this author's making it sound nice, but do you think he just went into someone's land and just didn't have no war, took what was theirs and just brought it back up north? No, he didn't. He had wars. He took what was valuable to them and brought it back into Egypt. So Africa was never one. All that oneness and, we all come from one land and branched out. History doesn't provide no evidence of that. No reference wherever you go says all Africa was one. You won't find it, man. Read on. In his tomb in the cliffs at Quebec El Hawa, overlooking the town, I.S.U.P.K relates the note of his 4 expeditions into Nubia to bring the produce of the foreign lands. To bring the what? Produce of all foreign lands. So he brought the produce of all foreign lands. Now, do you think they just made him have it? Or did he do something else? Let's see who's thinking on. You just go into someone's land and just take something valuable. Can I go into your house and just take your watch and just bring it back into my house? Or did he do something else? Let's see, think in line. So what exactly did he do really? All right, Officer Croft. So what did he really do? Stole it or made war? There he stole it or made war. You don't go into someone's land and take the exotics and people just let you. He's in the Sudan, Nubia, killing them and taking their goods and bringing it back into Egypt. And that's why there's a monument for him in Egypt, because he's done it so much. He went to the east, he went to the south. He done 4 expeditions and brought back some good valuables. We done. 5. To the lands of his Lord by casting the dread of Horus into the foreign lands. And he did what? By casting the dread of Horus into the foreign lands. And there you go. By casting the dread of Horus into foreign lands. Horus is the god of war. Horus is like Horus is it. That's right, yeah. So basically, he used the gods in his war. So basically, he's saying, he's saying the gods was with him when he went to war. He cast the dread of his god upon the lands, meaning he made war against them. He slaughtered them and took their exotics. He made war against them and took their valuables. He didn't go there nicely. So for anyone teaching you Africa was all one and, I'll go to your land, you'll go to mine, we all lived in peace. That's a lie. Because even in ancient Egypt, they made war with other families of Africans and took their belongings. So, anyone that loves Pan-Africanism clearly doesn't know what they're talking about. Anyone that loves Egyptology and goes, we was all one and, we let strangers in. That is a philosophy. That's a theory right there. Because real historians know, even in the Egyptians' land, they made wars with other Africans and they stole their resources. Read on. He boasts of the donkey loads of incense, ebony, oils, panther skins, elephant tusks, and glow sticks.
All right, so hang on. So he boasts. So he's not doing it, and he's saying, it's wrong. We're all black. It's wrong. We're all sons of Ham. He's doing it, and he's boasting about it. Like, yes, I came back with donkey loads full of incense, tusks. You know what I mean? So he's boasting about, yes, I went to someone else's land and I took all of their valuables. He's boasting about it. Read on.
But he is most proud of a far more exotic incursion, a dancing pygmy.
A dancing pygmy. For those of you that don't know, that's a short African. You know what I mean? So he brought one back to dance for the king. If you count on the Wikipedia, you can get them a pygmy, just like a short African tribe. So he even got one of them to dance for the pharaoh. So he brought him back. But yet people teach to you all Africa's one, all Africa's the same, when Egyptians did not feel that way. Harkuf, this expeditioner, he did not feel that way. You mean he's boasting about it and laughing when he took one of those small Africans back up to the pharaoh? You know what I mean? So you want to get from me a pygmy? So all right, we'll get that for you in a second. A pygmy. We can get Jeremiah 2. No swear. All right, Jeremiah 2. About we've committed evils, 2 evils.
Like pygmy people. In anthropology, pygmy people are ethnic groups whose average height is unusually short.
There, so that's what a pygmy is right there. It's a tribe of people whose height is usually short. So in Africa, you do have some families that they are usually short, like very short. Lots of them, you know what I mean? Then also in the North Pole, the what do you call them? Eskimos. They will be classed as pygmies as well. They are unusually short. They're short, but they're very wide, and they'll be they're very big but short. They're like a box. That's the best way to describe them. In Australia, you got pygmies as well. Even there was a tribe called the Tasmanians. They're extinct. I think the white people that went to Australia, they made them extinct. They was pygmies as well. You remember that cartoon about the Tasmanian guy here? Yeah, that is actually based off a fact. In Australia, it was a family, and the British that went to Australia, they totally wiped them out, and they look exactly like on the cartoon. Funny enough, but yeah, they're the people that would be the pygmies. Give me Jeremiah 2 about we've committed 2 evils.
Jeremiah 2, was it 1?
About we've committed 2 evils. Let me get the video for a second. Show it to Jeremiah 2 about my people have committed 2 evils. It might be Jeremiah 3 actually. Yeah, most likely Jeremiah 3 actually.
Jeremiah 3. 2:13.
That's it, 2:13, all right.
Okay.
Yep. It's Jeremiah 2:13. Got it. There you go.
Jeremiah 2:13. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me.
So one evil is we have forsaken the Lord, man. That's one evil we've done. We've forsaken the Lord for other gods. Because this is the history class on Egypt, we've forsaken the Lord for Egyptology. We've forsaken the Lord for, you know what I mean, so-called gods that don't even exist. We've forsaken the Lord for jackal-headed gods and falcon-headed gods. We've forsaken the Lord for Pharaoh. That's one evil that we've done. Read on.
For they have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters.
And the Lord is the what?
Fountain of living waters.
And the Lord is a fountain of living waters, man. Meaning the Lord has all the wisdom, all the knowledge, all the understanding. And we left that to follow a philosophy, to follow something that white Europeans invented in the late 1800s, man. We left that to go and follow a philosophy which they can't even break it down. While we're talking about Egypt and this pharaoh and that pharaoh, even they couldn't decipher the hieroglyphs. Even they can admit that no one really knows about certain contexts, really what the hieroglyphs really mean. You know what I mean? People have tried to decipher it so much, and deep down they don't know. So who are you to be like, I can read the Mesuneta? No, you can't. If people that been to Egypt can't even understand it, then you definitely can't understand it. People that, you know what I mean, got the hieroglyphs, try to match it with other hieroglyphs, see about the context while it's talking about. If they don't know, then most definitely you don't know, man. Read on.
The fountain of living waters, and hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water.
So we left the Lord, who is the foundation of living water, and we made us pots that can't hold no water. You're in Egyptology, you're in a philosophy that's holding no water, no truth, no substance. You know what I mean? It was a religion of an ancient race of people have God, man. Just the same way, if you're following Islam, you're following people that don't know God. Christianity, as what we see today, you're following the white man who don't know God. And that's what we've done, man. We can't hold no water. If you got a pot and it's got a hole in it, the water that you're carrying, what's going to happen? It's going to leak. And that's us with these philosophies. That's us with these religions. We're holding things that can't hold no water, no substance, no truth, no facts. We read the book about what they thought was facts. They believed that before the first king of Egypt came, that there was spirits going around, falcon-headed men. And they believe this. Real Egyptians believe this. You know what I mean? I know what a lot of you try to say, these things are metaphors. That book don't say that, man. People that study ancient Egypt, they know that real ancient Egyptians, they believe this. It wasn't something they just thought was a philosophy. It was a spiritual aspect. They believe these things, man. But read on.
And hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water. Is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave?
So the Lord's asking us, like, are we a homeborn slave? Like, what's wrong with us? Like, we like to jump to everyone's religions. We like to jump on the bandwagon of everyone's philosophy. Like, are we a servant? Are we a homeborn? Why are we doing this? We got the living God. Our ancestors saw our God part of the Red Sea. We walked on dry land on the left, water on the right, drowned Pharaoh. And yet we are a slave to religion, man. We are a slave to philosophy. We have become a slave to just anyone's theory. just something that people make and go, well, this is the truth. And that's the problem. Homeborn slaves, man, just jumping on anything that sounds right. Yeah, that's true. Pan-Africanism, Egyptology, Kemet, it all began in Africa. What's some other ones? But anyway, all of them go under the sum of Pan-Africanism. What's the other ones? Moors. Yeah, Moors. But be honest, there's loads. I'll be wasting my time going through all them. But we're homeborn slaves to what? To religion, to philosophy, to ideologies, man. Read on.
Khan, why is he spoiled?
And he's asking, why are we robbed? To be spoiled is to be robbed. And the Lord's asking a question, why us as Black, Hispanic, Native Indians, why are we robbed? Why as a people are we the most oppressed, the most hated, the people that the first fired, the last hired, man? Why are we like that? Why are we spoiled? Because we don't serve the Lord. We've forgotten the foundation of living water. We've forgotten the fountain of living water and made pots that can't hold no water. A cistern is just a pot. We got that holds no water. That's why we are spoiled as a race of people, man. Read on.
The young lions roared upon him and yelled, and they made his land waste.
So what does that mean? Meaning people are roaring at us, people hate us, people do so much against us, and we don't do nothing. Why is it that we don't do nothing? Because we don't know who we are. If you're in the church, when a white man roars at you and calls you a wagon, go back to Jamaica, have you noticed? We don't do nothing. We just sit there and, oh, he's ignorant, he is. You know, he just displaying ignorance. You don't roar back. Why? Because you don't know who you are. You've got a pot that holds no water. That's why you don't roar back. But you know, you're following religions and the Arabs hate you, calling you color, calling you shitty. You don't roar back and you still go into that mosque. Why? Because you're holding a pot that holds no water. That's why you're doing it. Read on.
Her cities are burned without inhabitants. Also, the children of Naph and Tephanes have broken the crown of thy head. And for those of you that don't know,
Naph is a Egyptian town. So in the book of Kings, you know, the Egyptians did attack us at one point. So, you know what I mean? It's going that look like, as a race of people, we're not fighting back. The Egyptians from Naph, they've made war against us and we ain't done nothing, man. There was no fight. There was no, you know what? I'm going to serve my God and I'm going to fight back. So, okay, yeah, Muhammad at book in Egypt uncovered this one last bit I want to bring out before we close out. Grab that real quick. Second. Okay, you read that page. I got it folded. 95 of the same book. This is going into what we call today the Book of the Dead, and what it's really about. You know, you got lots of people that think reading the Book of the Dead is Egyptian history. Now, yes, it's a record written by the Egyptians, but if you ask a lot of them, what is the Book of the Dead even about? They don't know. You know what I mean? They think it's got Egyptian history and like, you know what I mean, about this king and that king. That is not in the Book of the Dead. You know, because a lot of people like to read the Book of the Dead and they don't understand it, by the way. And even historically, it's going to show you about the Book of the Dead and what the Book of the Dead actually represents and what the Book of the Dead actually means. And you got it from page 95. I've highlighted it from. Now, it's just the last paragraph part here, though.
page 95, nearly 30 pharaohs would eventually be buried in what is known in the Valley of Kings, at the edge of the cultivated fields. Each king built his place of eternity or mansions of millions of years, as it was called.
Okay, so now whenever they died, you know what I mean, they would basically build a shrine for themselves, and that'll be so that in their afterlife they take their riches with them. That's what Egyptians thought happened when you die. Everything that you have in this life, you take to your next life. So they would die with their gold, their man slaves, their maids. So they would also be in there with them. That was the philosophy that Egyptians had. Read on.
Dating back to Egypt's first king.
Sorry, page 95. I believe the one at the top side, the highlight part at the top about the Book of the Dead.
Oh.
It does, yeah. It goes in what is called the Book of the Dead.
Over centuries, these spells were adapted to changing conceptions and modified to serve the needs of the wider audience.
Okay, so now this is going to go into the Book of the Dead, and it's a book of witchcraft, of like spells. That's what the Book of the Dead is. It's got nothing to do with Egyptian history in that sense, as you're going to know about this pharaoh, you're going to know about this war they had. It's simply a book of spells for that, so that people can have a more prosperous afterlife. Read on.
Eventually inscribed on papyrus roll and called the spells of the going forth by day.
So now the spells of the going forth by day, so meaning when they die, they're going to go forth into the next realm where they're going to take their riches, their slaves, their maids, their servants. So that's what they believe. So the so-called Book of the Dead was a spell about going forth. Read on.
Or today, the Book of the Dead.
Or today, the what?
Book of the Dead.
So that's what the Book of the Dead is about. And that's how you know a lot of people that love Egyptian religion don't really know what they're talking about. Because when they talk about the Book of the Dead, they're making it seem like it's a historical thing. And it's not. It's a book of spells for what people are going to do in their afterlife. So even that alone shows you that a lot of them don't really know Egypt as much as they claim to do, as much as they say to do, because a lot of them don't know what the Book of the Dead is even about. They don't know what the Book of the Dead even represents. Any more on that?
No, I've got a question online.
Yeah, I bring that.
I think the sister got a misconception of Isaiah 61. The question said was, can you explain the sabbatical cycle in Isaiah 61 and 2? How does it apply to today? What year do I start now that I know this, etc.?
What do you mean? Isaiah 60, what?
What is that day? I think there's a misconception of what that day is.
Okay. We'll break it down for you, of course, but the day of the Lord ain't talking about a literal day. It's just the time of the Lord. It's about what Yahushua, or people call Christ, what he would come to do. He came to do the will of the Lord, and it was his day, meaning it was his time to proclaim the day of the Lord, meaning proclaiming that we're going to wake up. We're not going to be oppressed no more. We're going to know who we are. We're going to have a second chance from the Lord. So if you want, start from Isaiah 61 and 1 first.
Isaiah 61 and 1. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me.
So now, again, if you go to Luke, it lets you know who this is talking about. This is talking about the Messiah, Jesus Christ, as people call him. So the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, or upon him. So meaning the vibe of the Lord upon him, meaning this man, he's going to do the will of God. He's going to do what God wants. Read on.
Because the Lord have anointed me to preach good tidings to the meek.
So now this man has the Spirit of the Lord, and the Lord has anointed him, meaning the Lord has picked him to preach the good news unto the meek. Who's the meek? We are. We're meek from slavery. We're meek from being oppressed. We're the people that have no power and can't fight back. We're meek in that way. It's not meek meaning you don't say a word. We got big mouths, but us as a race of people, We don't have no power to stop big things. We're meek. Anyone that oppresses us, we just have to take it. Anyone that owns all of our shops, we just have to take it. Why? Because we got none of our own. We're the meek. And Christ came to preach that good news to the meek. And who's the meek? We are. Read on.
And have sent me to bind up the brokenhearted.
And sent him to bind up who?
The brokenhearted.
Who's that? We're the brokenhearted. We're the people that have been enslaved and get no accolade, no reparations, no care. You know, what did that say? Well, technically, slavery wasn't illegal, so we didn't do nothing wrong. So we don't need to compensate no one. Meanwhile, the Indians, you know what I mean? They oppress them and they compensate the Indians. They make sure the Indians are looked after. England has oppressed lots of nations. And you want to know a fact? All of them are compensated except one, the sons of God, the children of the Lord. You're not compensated. That's why you're the brokenhearted that is written of in the Bible. Read on.
To proclaim liberty to the captives.
And to proclaim freedom to the captives. And who's the captives? We are. We're not going to go there for time's sake, but in Isaiah 42, we're the captives that are in chains of darkness, meaning we're lost to who we are. We're lost in religion. We're lost in sin. So you're being with Christ. He came to free us. Why? Because we're captives. Read on.
And the opening of the prison to them that are bound.
And we're bound. Read on.
To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord.
To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. So in this acceptable year of the Lord, what's he talking about? He's going to free us. It's not a literal year, just saying that he's going to do what the Lord wants him to do, to proclaim that the Lord, he actually cares about us, man, that the Lord loves us and he's going to free us out of those prison houses. It's not a literal year going to wake up, read on, mourn, as in that sense. It means that he's gonna put time of the Lord, right? Just saying that, if that makes it easier. If you understand, give me a con or a year, and then we'll up on the time.
The powerful clan. We're the I.S.U.P.K, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding Gen.YAHANNA, rule for a new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes to the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves out of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will call each other. Like what it's like, yeah. After the 6 month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment. Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10 means 10th in the Hebrew, Ma'ashira, 10% of any increase of every increase the Lord gives you, give to the treasury department or the teacher. Priest fund, free will offering for priests, not mandatory, whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocations, Purim, Payam, or Agriculture, or I.S.U.P.K social media, I.S.U.P.K Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, what's up?
Twitter, Facebook,
Instagram, Slack it, and yeah, on Facebook as well. And also check the bulletin board in the hallway. If anyone wants to be a troop in the school, start wearing all black boots, shirt, pants, headband, or headscarf. And with that, I mark them by the east. And it's the Lord's Prayer. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakvavka, Taba'ah, Ratazaka, Hayah, Aisha, Baratazah, Kawa, Hayah, Bashamayim, Nefilanawa, the Kam, Cow, Yawam, Wasalaknawa, Kabawafnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kabawafinawa, Wala'ah, Tabayayanawa, Banasayawan, Habal, Hawabshainawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Wahapara, I will Aman. I need the English.
Father,
our Father,
which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
In earth. As it is in heaven.
As it is in heaven.
Give us this day.
Give us this day.
Our daily bread.
Our daily bread.
And forgive us our debts.
And forgive us our debts.
As we forgive our debtors.
As we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not.
And lead us not.
Into temptation.
Into temptation.
But deliver us from evil.
But deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom.
And the power.
And the power.
And the glory.
And the glory.
Forever.
Forever.
So be it.
So be it. And pray for the power of Yahweh.
Yahweh.
Ba'ashem Yahawashi.
Ba'ashem Yahawashi.
Baba Kusha.
Baba Kusha.
Nafana
Nawa.
Haka.
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 Lara Pa'a.
Lara Pa'a.
Kau Makala.
Kau Makala.
Kau Madawa.
Kau Madawa.
Haka.
Haka.
Lataha.
Lataha.
Hamatazarayan.
Hamatazarayan.
Haka.
Haka.
Lahakuyam.
Lahakuyam. Hamafiam.
Haka.
Haka.
Arukawa.
Arukawa.
Hatama Allah.
Hatama Allah.
Lagarashan.
Lagarashan.
Ba'ashem Yahawashi.
Ba'ashem Yahawashi.
The word Aman.
Aman. And in the English, Yahweh.
Yahweh.
In the name of Yahawashi.
In the name of Yahawashi.
Please give us the power.
Please give us the power.
The power to heal.
The power to heal.
All manner of sickness.
All manner of sickness.
And all manner of disease.
And all manner of disease.
The power to cleanse the lepers.
The power to cleanse the lepers.
The power to raise the dead.
The power to raise the dead.
The power against unclean spirits.
The power against unclean spirits.
To cast them out.
To cast them out.
In the name of Yahawashi.
In the name of Yahawashi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So be it.
So be it. What is it?
No, there's the blessings then.
The blessings. Barakatah Yahweh.
Barakatah Yahweh.
Wa Yahawashi.
Wa Yahawashi.
Wa Mayaka Allah.
Wa Mayaka Allah.
Wa Allah.
Wa Allah.
the Gordon family,
the Gordon family,
the Bennett family,
the Bennett family,
the Gardner family,
the Gardner family,
Itara,
Carmel, Zaira, Alishai, Ayala, Magawa,
Masawa,
Mawasa,
Bashemi Hawashai,
the
Wada
Arman.
And what was said was, Lord, in the name of Jesus, bless us and Israel and the school, bless and shield, protect our loved ones in the name of Jesus. Thank you, and so be it. And with that, one curse to the teacher, men of Israel, and Madam Shabbat, and Madam Barakatah.
Yahweh Bashemi Hawashai, Barakatah.